John, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. We are so excited to have you on the show today, man. Thank you for joining us.
Super glad to be here, guys.
Let's dive into some background on you, John. For people that don't know you, maybe give a little inception on how you became an investor, entrepreneur, and like the quick 60-second elevator pitch on who you are.
Yeah. So I got into real estate by getting fired by the 47th president of the United States on live television. I was on The Apprentice many, many moons ago, and coming out of the backside of that show, I was in the tech industry, and we exited our tech firm. And the person that won my season, Kendra Todd, was like, come get a real estate license and get into real estate with me. It'll be fun. Yeah, she lied. Fast forward that now, almost 20 years later, we've flipped hundreds of homes. Really, when we flip, we specialize in the super high end of things and luxury, but I am the second largest brokerage now in Nevada. So I've got 585 agents that work just for me. We're a completely vertically integrated business. Anything that touches the real estate transaction we own. And yeah, it's been a fun ride.
That's John, amazing, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Corey.
So, well, it's funny the way you led into that. Before we hit record, you mentioned 27 years old was an inflection point for you. It's funny because I bought my first property at 26, so it was a little bit of an inflection point for us too. But I want to go back. Let's go back to like you know, on The Apprentice, you did all these things. It's like you've built like quite the life for yourself. But there has to be something intrinsic before high school, college. What do you think it was that made you the entrepreneur, or made you even get into that world? Because a lot of people coast in this life, and we'll talk about escaping the drift too. Yeah. That's kind of like hand in hand. What do you think it was about your childhood or your upbringing, your high school or college that was like, I need to do something different?
Well, you know, it's interesting. A couple things I think happened. Number one, my parents, children of the 80s, my parents got divorced when, I was very young. My father was a Southern attorney in a very small town and divorced my mother. And here's a little lesson for all the ladies married to attorneys in small Southern towns. Yeah, don't get divorced in that town because it's not going to work out well for you. And so we were living in like the ritziest neighborhood in my small town, but we didn't have any money. So I learned how to hustle at a very early age, and it just kind of became hustling, hustling my parents, hustling people I knew, hustling, golfers on the golf course by diving in the ponds and getting balls and then hawking them to them on the fourth, tee box while you're running away from the marshal to try to not get caught. So yeah, that growing up like that, it's weird because I say that and through speaking and doing different things, I hear these terrible stories of adversity, right? David Goggins and just these horrible stories. And people are like, oh yeah, poor you. You had to grow up in like the nicest neighborhood with no money. That's a real challenge. But it did really shape who I was in a good way and a bad way.
Well, I think there's some relatability here, and we're nowhere near the level that you're at, but I think it's interesting because Ryan and I grew up, I don't know, I would say middle class, upper middle class, depending on where you are. But we talk to people all the time, came from nothing. We just interviewed somebody who was born in Egypt, now is a billionaire or like has $1 billion company. We interview people that are come from, and what that does, John, is it inspires us to say we had all the tools in our tool belt that was not necessarily given to us. I didn't have like major abundance growing up, but I definitely had enough. So I'm like, I don't want to screw this up, because I was given so much. So I kind of resonate with what you're saying. It's like, you even though you didn't grow up poor, it's like now you're looking at people that accelerated past you. It kind of gives you that motivation to like, hey, I got to get on my horse here a little bit.
Yeah, I think the issue was, again, because my father was fairly successful. And at that, when I was younger, he wasn't the best dad, maybe. He did make up for it later in life. It was much later in life. He was a great dad later. But when we were kids, you always had this kind of, it put this artificial safety net in my head. Like my dad's always going to save me. At some point, I'm going to get a bunch of money. At some point, somebody's going to take care of me. And that became this really negative pattern in my life that somebody was coming to save me. Right. And I started it became latching on to like girlfriends and latching onto this. And it was just like, there's always somebody that was gonna save me without ever taking responsibility for saving myself. And that became a really difficult pattern through my early 20s. And I think a lot of people do that. They don't see a way out through themselves. So they start looking for ways out through others. And I think I did a lot of that in my early 20s.
Dude, that resonates with me so much. And no one's ever really said that, but based on my upbringing, it was kind of similar to yours, sort of, but like, dad owned a business. I never really needed to want for anything. And so like after college, I'm like, hey, worst case, I'll go work for him. Yeah. Even though it's nothing about what I want to do at all. And my brother is working for him now. They make a great living. Fine. I just felt like I was built for something else. And so it really kind of stunts you in a way where you're like, hey, at some point, I feel like dad's just going to come save you. Or like, you could just go do this. And my back wasn't always against the wall. Whereas I feel like as we've come up in this game now, a lot of people we talk to, I'm like, the guys that have come from nothing are the biggest competition ever because they have nothing to lose. They're just like, they have this big chip on their shoulder. They're cutthroat. They'll just go do whatever. And they can be robots a day in and day out in the consistency and discipline. So I had to train myself on all that because I did wake up one day in my W-2 and I'm like, Lucky Corey and I talk about this stuff all the time and the FIRE movement and like living a bigger life. It's like, at what point are you going to buck up and do it, bro? And it was really right around that 27, 28 age where we bought our first property. And so it's kind of like, I was excited when you told me about the book and we started talking. I'm like, dude, you're speaking to me, like this escaping the drift. And it comes in different stages of your life too. I think you can also get caught in another one, working your W-2 for a certain amount of time. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Erwin McManus was on my podcast not too long ago. And we were talking about the book and Erwin's a great dude. If you don't follow him, and Erwin goes, he goes, why I love it so much? Like the title Escaping the Drift. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, because like even successful people, like drift is motion. So you still feel like you're moving in a direction. So you don't feel stagnant, but sometimes you still feel like you're moving, but you're just not necessarily plotting a course. So that's how successful people also could take advantage of this because they end up drifting as well. You find that first little taste of success and then you're like, oh, this is easy. We just wash, rinse, repeat, like in the property flipping business. Like, oh yeah, just do this over and over and over until you get stung. And you're like, well, what happened? It's because you weren't paying as much attention as you were on those first couple. You tried to automate the process and we're step out of it and then you get smoked.
Yeah. So what happened to you at 27 then? What was this transition point? And that was the reason for the book there.
Well, I think, for me, I had a lot of cool jobs, right, coming up. So early 20s, I worked for Hooters of America, which was a great job in your early 20s back in the day. I mean, not so much now, but back then, dude, it was like getting hired to work at your fraternity, essentially, is what this was back in the day. So worked my way up through the ranks with those guys. We got to live all over the country with them, which was great. Got to see a lot of the country, and that was a cool job. And then, from there, stayed in the nightclub and restaurant business and actually was running what Esquire magazine called the #1 nightclub on the East Coast of the United States in Atlanta, which was Cobalt Lounge. And that was going great right up until Ray Lewis had a little mishap during Super Bowl 2000, if you recall that. Yep. That was my bar. So, I got to be on SportsCenter for all the wrong reasons. I told my dad, which was funny. So, and eventually, I just needed to do something different and step out of what I was doing. And I just was you get into hospitality and you kind of get trapped in that industry. I think it's that one especially. And at 27-ish, I said to my buddy, it was 28, 29, I guess it was. And I was like 28, 29. I had like bleeding ulcers. I was like, the doctor's like, how many hours are you working? And I'm like, I don't know, 100. He's like, what's your diet? I'm like, Maker's Mark and cigarettes. He's like, you need a life change. I was like, okay. So that's when I called my buddy Rick Wells, who was a vice president at WorldCom at the time, and was like, hey, people have always said I should be in sales. Give me a job. And he's like, no chance. He's like, you don't have any experience. He's like, you can get it. He's like, if you want sales experience, you got two choices. You can go sell Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door, or you can go sell cars. Either way, you'll get a PhD. And that kind of began my shift from depending on others to depending on myself. Because that's the first time I'd ever had a gig with no paycheck, was that one. I chose cars, by the way. I was never going to go Kirby vacuum cleaners. I sold cars. Just for like 60 days. 60 days I lasted in that job.
Okay, cool. I want to dive into this too. So it's funny because I know where you're at now, and then that led you to real estate. And I'm an agent, a newer agent. I kind of love the grind and the hustle of trying to figure out how I can help people in my network. Ryan and I run a community of teaching people how to get into real estate on the investing side. So there's something very adjacent to me. But I'm curious about what the car business taught you, and then how that led you to the real estate.
So the car business was my first experience with running without a safety net, having no salary, no anything. It was my first job, but it was 100% eat what I kill. That first month in the car business, I worked at Troncalli Nissan in Decatur, Georgia, and I sold 30 new cars in my first month, which was like bowling a perfect game. It just doesn't happen. Right. So they immediately moved me to Highline, which Highline for them was Infinity. So I went over there and worked there for a month. But in that time, I learned a couple things. I learned how to move people to do what I want, and maybe not so much of an ethical way, because there was no empathy in the car lot. You're not selling with empathy, so you're not building any real value. But I learned how to move people with what I could see. And I also, this is when I kind of got in tune with my superpower, so you talk about how life experience shapes you. And it's funny because ChatGPT told me this, the cheapest therapist there is. And I didn't realize this, but Ty Lopez put a prompt up not too long ago. And I recommend everybody to do this. It's crazy if you haven't done this. Just go into ChatGPT and ask me 10 questions about myself that will tell me more about myself than even I know, and don't justify why you're asking them. Ask them one at a time. And then just truthfully answer those questions. And what comes out of it is a rabbit hole that you'll go down for like 2 hours. But anyway, I never put 2 and 2 together with this, but ChatGPT did for me. But when I was in 8th grade, right? Man, I had a big mouth on me in 8th grade. And it was like the mob mentality. We're in the locker room. There's this poor kid in the locker room, and all my friends are picking on this kid. So yeah, I'm chiming in too. We're all going to make fun of this kid too. This is what we're doing. We're making fun of this kid. Okay, let's make fun of him. And he was a bigger kid. And then he turns around and looks at me and is like, you. And I'm like, me? He's like, yeah, let's go. I'm going to fight you right now. And I'm like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, no, I don't want to do that. God forbid. And dude, that led to now all of my friends turning on me. And I got kind of ostracized my 8th grade year. Oh, here comes the chicken. Here comes the chicken. Here comes chicken. And that went on for like the whole year. And it wasn't until the end of summer when I actually kind of got over that. But it was like 7 months of being ostracized. And that, according to ChatGPT, Dr. GPT, embedded this really deep need for me to have people like me. But what that does is it's created a superpower where I am very in tune with when I've got you or when I'm losing you in any interaction with people. I know this, like, those people that like, they're telling you a story and you're just like, that's crazy. That's crazy for the 10th time. I don't have that, because like, I know when I've got somebody or when I'm losing them. And that experience on the car lot really tuned that from probably a 5 to 10. It sharpened that blade to super skill.
John, it's funny. I have that too. And and I know when I'm annoying someone and I'm like, or like getting close and I'm like, all right, I'm out. And so I don't know what it is and how that's come to be. I've been told it's called emotional intelligence. Do you categorize that as something else? Is that what you call it?
No, it's very high EQ. And to me, it's funny. You talk about bringing in new real estate agents. I am more interested in EQ than IQ for that job, for that reason. Yeah. Again, I think EQ far more important than IQ when dealing with customers, because if you can't, again, like I talked about the car lot, right? As I moved into more agent-centric businesses, which we did, really getting in tune with understanding what people want on a deep level is how you create value in a relationship. And how much you make in this world is 100% tied to the amount of value you can build for people.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's, I just said this actually in another podcast, is like, you're paid in direct proportion to the amount of people you serve, point blank, and how much value you give them.
Yep.
So
that's exactly right.
Let's, I want to talk about the book a little bit more and dive deeper into it, but it's funny. We were chatting briefly before we got on air, and you mentioned that you got a review today, your first review. So tell us how that went.
I did. I got it and I didn't love it. And I read it and it was like, woo, that stung, because when you go through a real publisher and not self-published, like you just throw it up on Amazon, it's a process for getting a book out. If you haven't done it yet, it's a whole process. And we're at the finish line of that process, although Hormozy now has moved the goalpost tremendously that we're now trying to catch up with. But, they send it out for pre-read to certain organizations that are trade organizations for like buyers of bookstores, like bookstores that buy books and just pre-stuff. So I got this review back from an organization called Publishers Weekly, and they sent it back. Now think about this review. I read it at first, and I'm just going to read the last sentence of this review after what it was. They said, readers will find little to latch onto here, is what they said. And when I read it through the first time, that's all that I landed on, was that one sentence. And then the next day I read it again and I got through it, and I go through it. Now, nowhere in this review does it say it's poorly written. Nowhere does it say it's not entertaining. Nowhere does it say it's not a good read. Here's the thing that I knew it was what makes this a great review. It says this. It says, while Gafford brings personal flair to his framework, notably when sharing how he implements his life advice with his own kids and details his experience with depression, his advice often comes off as trite and lacking nuance. Here's the sentence. Rather than acknowledging the myriad systematic issues that hold people back, he presents all problems is fixable. You're damn right I do, because I am diametrically opposed. Everything in this book is diametrically opposed to the fact that there is a myriad of systematic issues causing your problems. And anybody that believes that, this ain't for you. Right?
So basically, John, is it told the people that have this victim mentality that are going to stick with that to not read your book, or maybe if they want to change their mind to read your book and get out of that frame of mind. And this critic actually exposed exactly why people should read your book.
This is why I wrote the book. That line, right? I'm a little sad that whoever wrote this didn't get it. Like, I obviously, maybe it's too entrenched in their own views to get there. But yeah, of course, there's no, like, doing what you guys do. And you said it earlier when you said all of the people that you've had through your podcast. I'm the same way, right? With our podcast. And you talk to these people that came from worse than nothing, that have no business being anywhere near the success they're near. And I'm talking about every creed, color, religion, country on earth are here in America making it happen. Where's the myriad of systematic influence that kept them from doing that? Because I don't see it.
It lies between people's ears. That's the problem. And we just got off another podcast where we were talking about how the media drives, just like mainstream drives, attention over truth. So you can follow it and you can look into it and you can clickbait and you can do all that. But if it's not necessarily truthful, and you have to figure out where you find your truth. And I think a book like yours makes a whole lot of sense. So what I like to do, John, is I want to get into the real estate. You know, you mentioned like, you're not this Vegas real estate monster, if you will. So like the car business, last, 60 days, real estate, and then we'll tie that back into like why you wrote the book in the first place. But like, what happened in the real estate journey, and how did you become this, like, I said monster, but like, in a good way.
so luckily there was other businesses between the cars and real estate, but not important for what we're talking about today. But one of them was I was a CFO or COO for a tech firm in Tampa. So this was kind of the early days of like Flash and some other stuff that we were doing. So when I exited the tech firm, we got out of that. Again, I was just kind of hanging out, and Kendra Todd, who won my season of The Apprentice, was like, come get a job with me, work with me, it'll be fun. And we started doing, this was during the boom, and we were doing the condo conversions sales. So we would go to these trade shows and get up on stage and talk about, we've got projects in Tampa, Miami, Vegas, all the places that imploded 6 months later. And we would sell these condo conversions to investors at real estate shows. That went on for not very long, because obviously the market turned and imploded in 2007. And luckily for me, some of the lessons that I've learned through life, really focusing down on having a plan and evaluating risk and building value. I came to Vegas with some friends and met a girl, on a trip out here, and we had projects, and I started coming out here every weekend to see her. And the guy that had been my roommate on The Apprentice, his dad was already here and owned a brokerage. And I was like, you know what, man, maybe I'll move to Nevada. There's nothing keeping me in Tampa. So I moved out here. And because of my experience in the tech firm, this is back in 2007. I mean, nobody knew how to scrape the local board's website to get everybody's email address. Nobody knew how to do that. I could do it in my sleep. Nobody knew how to create really flashy, cool emails to market for recruiting. I could do it in my sleep. So before I had a website or a lead or even licensed in Nevada, I spun up a recruiting engine and hired a team of 24 agents.
Wow.
That literally showed up and were looking at me like, what do we do now? And then, you just start winging it from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a theme here. It's like, you're a serial entrepreneur, really, and you're getting into new businesses, and you know how to lead people to want to follow you. And I mean that in the best way possible. So like, I don't know if you can put it into words, John, maybe you can, but like, what do you think you've learned about leadership that has allowed people to say, I want to follow John. He doesn't even know the real estate business really yet, but I want to be a part of what he's doing. And that there's something there that I just want to unpack.
Well, I learned that pretty quick. And I think people have to have true belief that you have a genuine interest in their success. And real estate is one of the toughest businesses because so many people in this industry, if you're flipping and you want to bring on mentees or whatever you're doing, right? So many people in this business, they work from a place of fear. They work from a place of scarcity. They're always so terrified they're training their future competitor. And if you're going to be truly successful and invest in people, you should want to be training your future competitor. These people should want to go out and do their thing. I mean, you look at the people over the years that have just been juggernauts at what we do. I mean, do you think Pace Morby is concerned about anybody competing with him? Do you think Cody Sperber is ever concerned about any of that? I mean, are you guys concerned about it? I mean, no, you're pouring into others because you genuinely want to see them do well. And I think that's the key, especially in this industry, to great leadership.
I think what you leave people with is, hey, this is the problem, John, actually with corporate America in general, is because if you're in middle corporate America and you have middle management, the people that work below you, you only want them to get so good because then they're coming for what you have. And then that's like that's intrinsically taught. It's like that my boss, like they're only going to give you so many tools. And that's why I loved getting out of that world, because it's like, well, now there's an infinite no ceiling above my head. And I want to collaborate with people at the top because they know that the impact that you leave with them is going to be way better than you trying to give them gatekeeping ideas of where they can actually get to. So I totally agree. And I don't even know if I would consider myself a great leader, but I've learned that by amplifying people's voices and having people on our podcast and trying to push their book out there and their content and what they're trying to give the message into the world has only amplified what we do, and not trying to say, don't go into this person's mastermind because it's adjacent to what we teach. Like that's the wrong message. So I totally get it.
Well, and I also firmly believe this. I think everything works on frequency, right? So like, we don't all like the same music. Like, you have a favorite band. Everybody is different. And music is intrinsically kind of the same thing, but it's just delivered in a different way. And so somebody's going to resonate with the way that you guys deliver information different from this person. So just because maybe they're not a fit to receive that message from you because they're not just getting it on the right frequency, they're fit for somebody else. And so I think what we are responsible for doing as educators, and I think at the end of the day, that's a big part of what we all do. Our responsibility is just put that frequency out as far and wide as we can, and the people that resonate with it are going to find us.
Yep,
that's the mission.
It's fun. It's very interesting. I think Hormozy calls it the wrapping or the package, like how you package things together. And it's just really interesting where a lot of us are preaching the same message. It's just the way you present it to people, and then you attract your tribe, right? Like, we found most people in our mastermind are very similar to us. They have a lot of the same values, and it's just like you attract what you put out. So it's really interesting. One thing we touched on, we kind of really went over it very quickly in the beginning of the episode, and I'm just super intrigued on it. So I'm sure the listeners are too. Can you talk about your journey in The Apprentice? Like, how did you even get on the show and like how that kind of transpired, but also how did it kind of shape who you are as an entrepreneur?
Well, I'm actually, it's the talk that I'm doing right now. It opens with how I got on The Apprentice, and I'll share that with you now. So we whittled all the way down to the finals. How we got to this point, not relevant, but they're down to the top 50 people that they're gonna maybe cast from the show, and we're at the Santa Monica Embassy Suites, and I'm standing inside these double doors, and Mark Burnett and the NBC brass is on the other side of the double doors, and I walk in. How you doing, Mr. Burnett? My name's John Gafford. Stuck my hand out, and Burnett's sitting there, and he's eating M&Ms, right? And he just looks at my hand, and he just drops an M&M in my hand. Doesn't shake it, doesn't say hello, just drops an M&M in my hand. I'm like, all right. So I launch into all my accolades of, business successes and all of these great things that I've done and why I'm the perfect candidate. And he's just completely disinterested. He's just asking me questions like, hey, I heard from your buddy Rick that your girlfriend's about to dump you. Is that true? And I'm like, what? Like this is nuts. And I'm like, no, but this business accolade and this success thing. And I'm just going this, and I'm looking around the room, and I can just see the NBC people are starting to like check their phones, and their eyes are glazing over. I'm like, this is going poorly. This is really going poorly. So I leave the room and I go downstairs, and I literally start packing my stuff, because we started out the week with 50, but by now we're down to probably 25. People have been disappearing throughout the course of the week. And so I start packing my bags. I'm like, there's no way. I'm done. That was it. And a PA comes to the door and says, they want to see you again. And I said, okay. And in that moment, I'm like, I need a new plan. I evaluated some risk, and I said, okay, let's go build some value. And I walked upstairs. I said, hang on a second, dude, before we go, I got to hit the mini bar. straighten my tie, walk up, loosen my tie, and I kicked the doors open as hard as I could. Wham! They hit the walls. All the NBC people jump when I walk in. Burnett looks right at me. I look eyes and I look eyes and I go, let me tell you something, buddy. Let me tell you why you should put me on your little television show. When you invest in me, you get back 100 times what you invest. And I pulled a bag of M&Ms that I pulled out of the minibar. I threw them in his face and I walked out. I didn't let him talk to me. That got me on the show.
Sick.
Oh
dude.
man, what a risk,
dude.
Yeah, but was it a risk though? Because you talk about risk evaluation. Was that a risk? Because as I sat there in that moment, I'm like, what's the downside? I'm already completely screwed. Like I'm cooked already. So the problem was when I went up there the first time, when you talk about building value for people, I built no value because they weren't hiring people. They're not looking to hire anybody. They're casting. So they need somebody that might do something crazy on TV, which gives them ratings, which is what they want. So I'm like, okay, I can go balls out here and create an unforgettable moment. And the upside was getting that opportunity, which it did. So it worked out.
So cool. So just in your journey, I'm trying to pinpoint where this was. At what age were you as you got on?
I was 32.
You're 32?
32. Yeah, 32 when we filmed that.
Got it. And so just one last we can kind of pivot away from this, but just like, I'm very curious what it was like being on the show and like dealing with the president and like going through all the now president, but it's just very cool to have a bird's eye view into your world back then. If you can remember anything that was like super impactful.
Yeah. I mean, it was, if you went, I'll put it this way. It was like rushing a fraternity, I guess is the easiest way to put it. If you ever did that, the best time you ever have in a fraternity, well, I don't know how anymore they've kind of gotten rid of hazing, but back when I went join a fraternity, it was, you got killed as a pledge by the brothers for the whole semester. But the weird thing was the best time you ever had in your fraternity is when you were a pledge. When you were on the other side of it as a brother, it wasn't as, it's weird. It's maybe Stockholm syndrome. I don't know. It wasn't as much fun when you were doing the hazing as it was when you were being hazed because you were like a unit. And when you were going through the experience, like a week on the show was 3 days in reality. So you would get a task at like 7:30 in the morning on, say, Monday, and then you would work 36 hours, no sleep, just keep working until the next day. And then the task resolution was at like 5 o'clock the next day. So you're just working straight through from 7 a.m. this day to 5 p.m. the next day. And then you would find out who won. If you won, you went on an award that night. And then the third day is when we kind of had a day off, but they would shoot pickup where all like the interview scenes where they like take you to the park and then they would walk all, they'd film like you breaking down what happened on the episode so they could cut it back in for TV. And then you go again and you just keep going 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, cycles like that. Oh, and then on the third day was when the boardroom was when somebody got fired. So at the end of that bring back day, that's when somebody got fired. And you wake up and go again. And so going through it was crazy. We got to spend a lot of time with obviously Donald Trump. Back then, it was like, talk about a commanding presence, man. Everywhere we went with him, it was crazy. He was super popular to everyone back then. There was not like divisive like it is now. He was incredibly popular with everybody. But I gotta tell you that the most amazing person to be around during that time was Mark Burnett. That dude was a beast. I mean, that's a dude that was a nanny, right? He was a nanny selling t-shirts on the pier in Santa Monica. And within 5 years of that was the most powerful guy in television. Like, that's amazing.
Totally.
I mean, amazing. So being around him, that's actually where the name for the book and the podcast came from, was Mark Burnett.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he? Give me a little background on that.
So we're getting a task one day and everything's going wrong. I mean, we're out in front of Trump World Tower, I think it was, and like the booms are broken and like production is just not working right that day. And let's just say Burnett did not exactly lead with like the kindest hand when things were going wrong. So you could tell he was pissed. And as he walked by us, Kristen Kirchner, who was one of the other contestants, she goes, "Oh, you're treading water today, aren't you, Mark?" He just shot her a look and he's like, "I never tread water. I swim. You drift with the currents." And I was like, "Oh God, fucking write that down." And I never forgot that, because you think like how many people are drifting along and how many are choosing their own path and plotting a path and swimming, like, as Mark was that day.
Love it, man. So you've lived like these entrepreneurial, like different silos of your life. You've been in so many different worlds, which I find so interesting. Some people tell you to do one thing, you do it great, and you try to do it for 30 years, but you've been in like these different realms. I'm curious what you're focused on now. Like what's the 2025 version of John Gafford? Like what's that look like?
Yeah. So, we're blessed right now. Obviously, our companies are very successful and they do very well. And we have unbelievable management that's running our companies now. We're so blessed with having unbelievable people in the seats that are with us. And probably right now, I can say it's the best it's been in 15 years in that department. I mean, I was looking around last night. We had an event and a lot of our top people were there. And I was just looking around like, man, this is a collection of just rock stars that make my life so much easier. But, right now in this season, I'm lucky to be at a place where I want to impact as many people as I can outside of our ecosystem. Because, I'm blessed to get to work with, 50 or so loan officers and 585 real estate agents and 35, 40 people with our title company and all of that. But the pathway to the book is going to get me hopefully in front of impacting as many people as I can. My kids are at an age now where my son's about to go to college and my daughter's 15. So they're going to be moving on and not calling as frequently for the next several years as we all do when we go through that age, because they'll know it all. Well, I already know it all, but yeah. So I just want to get to that season where I can impact as many people as I want. And, some of the things that we're developing to do that, I don't think my personal opinion right now is there's not a good place for independent real estate agents that are top producers that work at independent firms to kind of meet in circle. And that's kind of why we started Click Syndicate, which will be coming out same time as this book. Is we want a place where top producers can share ideas with each other. You look at a lot of the online membership things that, or organizations or groups, you will, that are consistent real estate agents, and it turns into a complaint fest. We're going to have one standard rule. You bitch about anything, you're done. We don't have room for it. We want to create an environment of just savages in our space. So that's what we're doing. That's what's next.
Awesome. So just honing in on the book and the theory behind it. And I know we touched on it a little bit, but escaping the drift. I want the exact from your brain out into the universe on you, because you mentioned there can be a drift in every aspect of your life. And you have put it out there that you're trying to escape that. So like, what does that really mean? If somebody's like, I want to read this book, and I know we touched on it a little bit, but like, just give me the reason why someone should read the book.
I'm gonna read it to you from the book. I'm gonna give you the top 10 reasons in the first forward of this book of why you should read this. Is if you feel like every day is on repeat without making any real progress. And I think a lot of people feel that. Are you always waiting for the right time to make a change and it never shows up? Do you let external circumstances, your boss, your finances, your family, the economy dictate your choices? Are you more reactive than proactive, constantly putting out fires instead of building something meaningful? You spend more time scrolling social media, binge watching shows, or numbing out than you do actively improving your situation? When you think about your future, do you get excited or do you have anxiety? Do you have clear written goals for your life, or are you just hoping it'll work out? Are you surrounded by people who challenge you to be better, or are you just going along with the crowd? Have you been in the same financial career or personal situation for years with no progress? And lastly, do you secretly feel like you were meant for more, but you just don't know how to make it happen?
Well, I'm glad you had those 10 commandments there ready for me. That's pretty cool. So,
because I was all of those things at one point in my life. And I find myself sometimes slipping back into some of those even now.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like an interesting cycle that, like, I think that even when you become the level of successful that you would deem yourself, or anybody else, maybe somebody on the outside would deem you, is that you still have to escape the drift in your own level. And I talk about this because I left my full-time job a year ago to dive into the entrepreneurial sphere. And thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. But what it's taught me, this past year has been insane, but what it's taught me is that you create a new reality or a new cycle for yourself that is just different. It's not necessarily better or worse than it was before, where it's like I left the stability for the open ceiling, but now I have no floor, right? So there's like this weird world that I'm trying to like dance in, that it's like I can understand why people do want stability in their life. So I guess what I'm saying is that now I have to escape a new drift, right? I have to escape a new, hey, am I just coasting along and where I am now? Can I take it to the next level? Which leads me to like a kind of a personal question. I'm curious, like, your why. Like, why do you do all this? Like, what gets you out of bed every morning to like continue the grind and continue to push forward when it seems, from somebody who just met you 37 minutes ago, that you have a lot going for you. And it's like, maybe what do you need more for? Or maybe you don't. You tell me.
Well, I think a lot changes when you have kids. I think you start to see the impact that you can have on another person's life in an intimate way, if you really make an effort to do that. And the thing that I am haunted about so much in my life, even though I've achieved here, is what would have happened if I would have started acting like I do now and doing things the way I do now when I was 18, 19 years old? Where would I be? Where would I be? How much further ahead would I be? Now you can't beat yourself up too much because they say the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago and the next best time is right now. But where would I be if I did that? And if I can reach me that's out there somewhere at 27 years old, and I can catch them at 24, 23, or even if they're 30 and they were just never going to get there at 40 and they were never going to get there. If I can make that kind of impact, that's fine. I mean, a lot of people talk about legacy, I don't. I'll be dead. Hope I'll be looking down from up and watching mine. But my only goal, and I stole this from Cole Hatter, God bless him, was my only goal is I just want people fighting over the microphone at my funeral. That's it. As long as I can have a bunch of people fighting to say something nice about me at my funeral, then I've done my job. But that's it, man. It's a mission to just save me from myself. If this is my time machine. That's my why. It's my time machine.
I love that, man. That's awesome. There's two things that you said in the show that I just want to end with here that just resonated with me, and I just don't want to skip over them. You mentioned the fraternity thing, and it's so funny. Corey and I both were in the same fraternity, and
what fraternity?
Kappa Sigma.
Okay, that's SAE for me. There you go.
Cool, nice, man. And so it really hit home about the rushing versus being brothers, because and I think I just want to correlate it to business. It's like going through the fire, at least. So I'm bringing it back to like my W-2 days, right? I had some of the hardest times ever in sales when the product I was selling was trash. And it was so hard, but I had this like band of brothers around me and sisters where we were going through the storm. And now that things are cush and they're better, I'm like, it's not hard and it's not as enjoyable. And it's like, I feel like I'm in the drift. And so I'm bringing it back to your book. And it really resonated with me because I remember my pledge class was the biggest pledge class that ever came through Cap Sig at our school. And it was 25 of us, which was insane. I was a junior, I was a little bit older, and they were younger. And I was the leader. Because of the age, and I'd already been at school long enough, they followed me. I already had the house, so we could kind of like congregate my area. I kind of gave them life lessons, and they taught me more than I could ever imagine. We were going through the storm together, and there was a lot of the hazing stuff that you were talking about. Like you're going through like trickery and all these things. You're like, what is happening? But we had each other to lean on. I just remember that being the most fun ever for me. And then when I was a brother, I was like, this is it. Like, this is cool, but like, that's it.
Yeah.
So it really resonated.
Where's the magic?
It brought me to sales world too. Right after I graduated, you go through it and like, I'm going through the horrible time. This is so hard. I don't know how to sell. I'm learning that the product sucks. And I'm like, we're just figuring it out. And now that it's easier, I'm like, man, I miss those days. I have all the pictures of like us dressing up crazy in the office, being goofballs, like anything to get through the day. And so it's just bringing me to now with Corey, like we have this business. And I know like right now we're going through a little bit of a storm. Like we've had some real easy times, but it's whatever. We're building another silo of the business. So there's growing pains in that business. And I'm like, we're stressing, we're going through things. I'm like, dude, we're going to look back in like a year or two. It's gonna be the same thing. Like those were the days. Like we pushed through, we did it. And I just want people to realize like, you're going to get shit that hits you left and right all the time. And I want to end with this. You mentioned the review you got and it pissed you off and you're like, dude, you didn't fucking get it. Like that person just didn't get it.
Oh, I love it. I love it because it made my point.
It does, but it also fuels you in a way too, right? Like it's just another thing. And like, I want to bring it to me. Like we've had like over, roughly around 300 reviews or 290 on Apple Podcasts, whatever. 90% of them are 5-star. We got 1 2-star and it was one of the ones that I've never gotten really over.
Who gives a 2-star?
Dude. That's what I'm saying. Don't write it or give us a 1. I don't give a shit. Here, I'm gonna read it to you. Let down. These guys have a good thing going. I've listened for a long time and gave them a pass on some of the stuff they were doing because they were new to podcasting and still trying to figure it all out. And I was rooting for them to improve. I'm unfollowing the show today because they continue to talk over their guests and answer their own questions. People want to hear from the guests, not you guys. Talk less and listen to the answers. You sound dumb when the guest goes into this long thought and you answer and step over them and say something stupid and ruin it. I think it's maybe your egos. Not sure, but look into it.
We've never done that on.
Oh my
I just
God.
want to say, like, I'm not one of those guys to like have something like this and be like, I gotta find this person. They're the worst. It fueled us. We have not received one less than 5-star review after that because go ahead.
Well, that's a 511 review. And what I mean by 511 is nobody on this planet is 5'11". Did you guys know that? It doesn't exist. Like, how tall are you guys? I'll tell you.
5'8".
5'8".
You're 5'8". Okay, how tall are you?
Me, 5'8". Same.
You're both 5'8". Okay, nobody's 5'11". You know why nobody's 5'11"? Because if you were really 5'11" and somebody asks you how tall you are, you're saying you're 6 feet. Right? You're saying you're 6 feet. That's just you're gonna round it up. You're never gonna say I'm 5'11". So if anybody tells you they're 5'11", they might be 5'8".
Yeah.
But at least, see, you guys didn't feel the need to do that, which was great. So, dude, man, I wouldn't sweat that. I think hopefully you took some of that in and said, could we do better? But at the same time, you know, you can either put that in the trunk or the tank, right?
Oh, dude, it's in the tank. And here's the thing: what I like about this, what I will say, like, I don't want it to be perfect. This allowed me to say, okay, from an audio, you know, whatever, like the listener's perspective. Okay, we need a pause. We need to let the interviewee or whoever's on the show talk more, and we stop jumping over them if they want like a nice show that goes in and out. But we also have a ton of shows where we give our opinions. And my thought is, I just want to bring it back to homie that wrote this, girl, guy, I don't know, don't care. You don't have the gall to go start a show, and you're not going to change your life. You're sitting back watching someone else live out their future and their purpose. So my point is, like, let it fuel you. Like for me, I was like, we're not gonna have a bad show after that. Watch me. Like we go through the outlines, we refine them, we learn more about the guests, we pause more, we edit better. So it really did allow me. I liked it. I appreciated it. And then it gives you a little fuel. And I don't want to say it's like, I don't want to come off as the guy that's like, hey, you know, that guy sucks because they wrote a bad review. No, like, thank you. Like, you have made us better, but also we don't need you in the ecosystem. So I don't care if you're here or not. But yeah, man. So.
I'm gonna give you one more for everybody listening to this, because we also have a podcast. You do the best you can to make sure the guests are going to be entertaining, but you have a responsibility to the people that listen to you to keep this entertaining. And sometimes you get people on here that you're like, oh my God, I'm about to fall asleep just listening to this person. I gotta start pumping some life into this podcast, or nobody's gonna listen to this. So sometimes we have to do that. You have to step on people a little bit.
Dude, 100%. You see the eyes glaze over and you're like, okay, like, dude, I gotta go. Like, and you, oh my God, we get, you know, the robots you got, and you're like, all right, Corey and I are doing the whole show today. You're gonna like just try to like weave away from the guests. So it's a learning thing. Hey, this whole thing's about entertainment, helping out other people, and just making the world go around, be a better place. And so you're going to get some of this stuff. I just think some of it's funny, man. It's like, it goes back to your view. Some of it's petty, and it's like, but it's their opinion and they deserve to have it. So it's cool. And it is what it is. But you can either, to your point, toss it in the trunk, toss it in the tank, use it as fuel to your fire. That's what we did. I think it's great. And honestly, I'm so pumped because since that review, we literally have not had anything besides a 5-star. And I'm like, dude, we're doing it right. Well, let's go. Like we need stuff like that sometimes. You need a punch in the face once in a while. So
that's awesome. I love it. Man. Good for you guys,
Thanks,
man. That's great.
Cool. John, this has been awesome, man. It's been great to get to know you. You brought the energy. Like it's cool to be in your ecosystem, if you will, now. So if people want to learn more about you, they want to buy your book, which I don't know why they wouldn't after listening to this episode, but they just want to network. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or your team and buy your book, obviously?
So I'm the John Gafford everywhere. That's so on Instagram at the John Gafford. All my handles are at the John Gafford. And if you want to buy the book, go to thejohngafford.com and grab the book there. Listen to the podcast at Escaping the Drift, available everywhere on all podcast platforms. And that's how you find me, man. I'm not hard to find, just like you guys. I'm everywhere. Omnipresent on channels.
Nailed it.
That's what we do.
Appreciate it, John. Thanks for your time.